Okay, so we have everybody here for our first panel discussion. It's called Black Romance and the Culture. My name is Sherri, and of course I run the Sister Girls Book Club, and we were supposed to have Behind the Pen in New York City, and today we're actually recording on the day we were supposed to have Behind the Pen, and we are here, so it's still a celebration. This chat, if you are watching it, you will be seeing it on Black Indie Authors Day. It's a day that our book club created for Black indie authors everywhere, no matter the genre or whatever. But today we're going to be talking about Black romance and the culture, and I'll just have the lovely ladies introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right into the questions.
Hi everyone, I am Danesha Little. I write in romance, and I currently have 5 published books.
Mm-hmm.
Am I supposed to say anything else? Okay.
Go ahead, Johnny, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Johnni Sherri. It's actually Sherri, like your name.
Oh.
Yeah, nobody knows that. And that's actually my middle name. So that's just the way my parents spelled it. But I have eight published books, and I write urban romance.
Hey everybody, my name is Chelsea Maria, and I currently have 13 published books, and I write contemporary romance.
Hi, my name is D.Rose. I have 17 published books, and I write contemporary romance.
Come on, Brookelyn.
Hi, I'm Brookelyn Mosley. I have about 25 books self-published, and I write contemporary erotic romance.
Well, this is a nice little bunch that we have here. So first question, just to jump right into it, how has being an independent author, like the journey have been for you guys personally? You can start off. Anybody want to jump in? Danesha?
Oh, did you want me to go first?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The journey has been one of trial and error. You don't have anyone to tell you, to put you on a schedule, to tell you, what to put out, what content. You have to find your own editors. You have to do everything yourself. So if you just, what I've learned about myself is I've had to really dig into a part of me that I've always kind of pushed down and really just be confident. It's required a lot of confidence and self-assurance in myself. So it hasn't been a easy journey, but it has been a fulfilling journey for me.
I feel you. Anybody else want to hop in?
I'll go ahead. I guess you're gonna say I'm kind of recently independent. I've been independent probably since May. And the journey, it has its highs and lows right now. And I guess one of the main things that I am learning about myself is to not be so passive. Because I'm used to like, oh, okay, whenever you can, get back to me until it's your deadline, and everything like sitting around that deadline is you. And when somebody else doesn't have the same, I guess, like sense of urgency like you do, you kind of don't want to be rude, but you kind of want to, like, hey, like this is my brand, like I have to, put that passiveness aside and actually, I guess you can kind of say, like, handle like a boss. It has been definitely rewarding to just be able to have full control over everything from the covers, the edits, the whole entire project itself. That's the most rewarding thing. So I agree with Danesha on that one, because when you release it, knowing all the hard work that you put behind it to finally get it released, it is like a feeling that I love every time I release a book. So, but it has, like I said, it has its ups and lows. Being independent is just so much more rewarding to me than it was when I was published, because it's like that's really my baby now. Like, I'm putting this into the world for you guys, and I just cherish those moments a lot more than I did when it was, I'm just turning the book. You tell me when my release date is, and we'll go from there. But knowing that I'm part of the process 100%, it's definitely a humble feeling.
Okay. Anybody else before we go on to the next question?
I'd just say that I am similar to Chelsea in that I'm also newly independent. I think my last release, I had full creative control in which I was able to choose my covers. I chose my editor, my proofreader, the release date, pricing, all of that kind of thing. And so that kind of gave me the courage to go ahead and move independently and taking what I've learned and just kind of move forward. And so this next release that I have coming up will be my first independent project. So I'm excited and nervous, all of that together. So fingers crossed, but it's already been a journey. It's already been a journey, just making sure that I stay on myself and that, you know, all I have is me. So it's scary and exciting all at the same time.
Okay. All right. So to keep it pushing, how do you balance being a writer, creative, and the business aspect that comes with being a businesswoman? Because it's a little bit different. You get to write and you get to be creative, but then it's also being that independent author. You have to worry about promotion, editing, like marketing, making sure readers are happy or are they writing their reviews. You have to be all of it. So how do you make that balance?
I'll go first. I learned that it's important to be organized, like you have to be organized or it's just going to be a mess. So when writing a book, I'll have days where it's like you have to write this, and then days where it's like, you need to plan how you're going to promote the book, what posts you're going to post on social media, what you have to do a little research on marketing because things change, the trends change. So it's like you have to set aside certain time for each thing. And I'm always like, what can I do better? What can I learn to do differently? Like, so I'm always researching ways to improve, whether it's like watching how another author's release like took off. It's like, okay, what did they do? Like, did they post samples? Did they do a cover reveal? Like, did they do a giveaway? Like, what did they do to gain such traction? You're just always studying. That's just what I have to study and stay organized.
That was great. Anyone else?
I would say scheduling everything, like looking at everything exactly how you want it to end, seeing it from the end goal and like moving backwards. So there's, like D.Rose said, there's a day for, marketing where you sit down and you make designs or you outsource it, if you have the money to do so. Or, there's times where you have to do like self-editing, which I live by self-editing before I send it to the editor because I feel like I get better as a writer when I self-edit. So also, having days set aside for those things, and I know it's gonna sound crazy, but making mistakes. Like I learned so much from making a mistake where I know that, okay, I won't do that next time. Or I'll like dare myself to do something that doesn't seem like a good idea, but I'll like throw it against the wall to just see how it sticks. So I would say taking risks and making schedules and just not being afraid to just try something new.
So you mentioned something about being afraid to try something new. So my question is, when it's a standard of how things are done, because there's industry standard and then it's like indie standard, because we see certain rollouts, or even if it's a popular author or just somebody who's a new author who all of a sudden gained a lot of attention because of the way they've done their project rollout, or maybe they did a series before they did a standalone, or they did a short story, or they are known as doing like being the great at doing short stories. How do you make sure that you don't copy in a sense and lose your sense of like your own creativity, trying to make sure that you stay intact with what's current and what readers like? Anybody can jump in.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because I'm like, I would say be original. I usually try my best. Like if I see someone has done something, I'll kind of consciously not do it or do my best to kind of do like a spin on it or do something different with it. I would just say, just see how you can do it, put your own spin on it. Try not to like do like a carbon copy of something that someone else did.
Anybody else? I feel like that was a hard question. And I didn't realize that it was going to be like
It was.
I'll go next.
Mhm.
I guess you kind of say like I have that issue because I see like I love promo and I love watching like the how can I say like the beginning stages of like when a book is released. So I love watching like all the other authors promo and just seeing like the different things like they're coming out with. But to try not to steal their ideas, I take it in like, okay, how can I put my twist on it, like to make it part of my brand, like, okay, this person did a trailer. Okay, can I do a trailer with a voiceover, adding more to it, to where it's not, okay, dang, she copied her. No, I was inspired, but this is my twist. So I'm always inspired by all the authors. Like, I love the promo. Like, that's one of my main things because, you can gain a lot of readers to promo alone. And so I just take it and I just, okay, how can I put a spin on it? Like the same thing like Brookelyn said, like not to copy it, but for it to speak me, to where you're like, oh, that's Chelsea's promo, oh, that's Brooklyn's. Like, that's Brooklyn's promo, that's Chelsea's promo. So I try to take it, but put more of me on it than what I just saw. So yeah, it's a trailer, but it's a whole Chelsea Maria trailer because you see all the different aspects that I'm used to putting in with my promo. So that's what I've done recently because, like I said, I love promo. I keep saying that, but I just love like seeing the creativity because not only are we creative in the stories that we write, but I think we show a lot of our creativity through our promo too, like how we come up with different things, the different graphics, just different things. I just love seeing like how our creative just it doesn't have like a limit, like it's just relentless, like it just goes. So I just always try to put my spin on it, try to make sure it doesn't say, okay, she copied. No, I didn't copy, I was inspired. And I will say that I was inspired by such and such because I want to give credit where credit was due, but at the same time I'll put my whole twist on it so where it's you see it but it's mine, you don't see it and oh, that's copied. So that's how I handle it in that situation.
That makes sense. Because a lot of stuff is just, it's going to be done over. And I guess, like, I think as a reader, too, you want to make sure that you just know you supporting it. And I feel like when we read, we look at it and we're just, like, interested in what you guys are going to do. Same thing you said, like, what is going to be next? What's going to be the next level? Or what's going to be their version of whatever it is? What's going to be your cover? What's going to be your fonts that you use? Because some people have staple fonts, staple colors on it. When you go to Instagram, staple this. So it's always interesting to see how you guys mix and match. So I'm with you, girl. Does anybody else have anything to add? You don't have to add.
I just wanted to say, it's kind of going back to your other question. When it comes to being an independent writer, is you're trying to find your way. So I don't look at it as, and I know I don't try to copy anyone, but I always look at what other people are doing and I'm inspired by it, because sometimes as independent writers, as indie writers, we get put into this box that our work is not as good as traditional, that what we do is not as good. So when I see indie authors just doing these big promos and big things, I'm inspired because I'm like, we are pushing it forward. We are pushing that stereotype of indie writers forward. Like, no, we are putting out great content. We know we're learning how to do this, the same way traditional is doing it. And so when I see it, I'm inspired by it. And like Chelsea said, you try to put your own spin on it. But I kind of look at it as like we're all in this team and we're all trying to push the agenda forward. So I don't ever look at anyone as copying anyone. I always look at it as like, hey, that worked. We all need to figure out a way to push it forward and put our stamp on something to make it go further.
That makes sense. I would say I like that versus like the copy game, because everybody has like images. So it's like, how can you just say that's copy? Certain things are just like, it's done. All right. So moving on to kind of like the culture. Nina Simone once said, an artist's duty is to reflect the times. So how important is it that your writing reflects the times that we are in? Because for the most part, you guys, I'm aware that you all are contemporary. So how important is it to you guys to like to reflect what our current political system, our current, like how we view Black love and Black women and Black men? How important is that to you? Or are you just writing from, a space of creativity and that's just it? It's not that deep.
I'll answer. I actually try to combine both. I write about the things that I like to write about, and I come from a creative place, like you said, but I also try to incorporate things that are of our time. You know, for example, in my last series, I incorporated there was police brutality, you know, in that book. There's also different themes that I touch on, such as colorism, which isn't a new theme, but it's a continuous theme of our culture. So I try to incorporate both. I try to come from a creative place, and I write about what I like and, you know, whatever inspires me. But I also try to keep current with what's going on, you know, in society today.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
I'll go next. I love Nina, by the way. She is like my shero. And I agree with her 100%. In my books, I always try to, I don't want to say shine light on it because it's prevalent and we're all aware of it. Gentrification, often, I want to say throwing shade to it, but kind of like educating if so happens that someone who is not my target market happens to read one of my stories where, you know, it's very clear where I stand on gentrification. And then I also think that it's so, and that's why I really love reading other Black authors who write stories about Black love, because you don't see, I mean, I would say much like lately, right now, that there is just a surgence of books that show Black love in all of its facets, and not showing like the Black girl being like the best friend of the white girl, and not really, you know, let me just say this, there was this post on Twitter where there was this white lady who said that she had read a book, I can't remember what author she read it by, but she said that she didn't know that we loved the same, which I thought was just like, but I couldn't really necessarily judge her because her world may be very much like a bubble where she only knows what she knows. So when she said that, I had a different kind of feeling. You know, I had to take a second to sit back and just like digest what it is that she said. But I feel like it's so important for authors like ourselves to create stories where we show how we love, because we love in different ways, but it's not that different where it would be, you know, hard to explain or hard for other people who are not us to relate. So yeah, I think that our books are that place where we can kind of use it as like a time capsule for what we are experiencing, and to give a diversity of how we fall in love, the different ways that we fall in love. Because sometimes it's not like boy meets girl, you know, there's different types, you know, girl might have been friends with boy, or girl may have hated boy, or something like that. So I think that to reflect what we, and then, you know, in some books, a lot of us don't write stories where at the end that they get married and they have children, you know, there's just different ways. So I think that books are definitely needed to reflect the time and reflect what we're experiencing, and to act like a time capsule.
I like the time capsule thing. That's so dope.
And adding on to that, it's not only a time capsule. I love what Brookelyn just said. It's also, we're humanizing us, especially at a time where tensions are so high. When we take a reader, no matter what the background of that reader is, and we're showing them the most genuine, pure form of love, as you're reading, you're not thinking, hey, this is a Black couple. You're reading and just pulled into this story, and you're just pulled into love. You're pulled into that main human thing that connects us all, that we forget because we have all these other dynamics that we always focus on. And I feel like it's our responsibility as indie writers is we are able to push the border a little bit more than the traditional are. We're able to really write it the way we want to write it, the way we see it, the way we feel it, and it's not watered down. And that's what I think what makes us so dope as indie writers. And we have to keep doing that, because the traditional, they can't and they won't, because they're more tied. We have the ability to really just show them, hey, we are human. And the more we humanize us and let people see our stories in a human form, the more it is more difficult to look at us as if we're animals to be killed on a street, or to be treated any other way, because it's like we're reminding people, like Brookelyn said, we're human. We love the same. We do all the same things. We're not these aliens. Like, we're real people. And I don't want to get deep, but I feel like it really goes back to those imagery from slavery, when slave masters used to come and do whatever they wanted with our ancestors, that they think that we're savages, or in a way that we enjoy that type, to be misused and abused. And I'm like, no, we are strong enough to get through it. But in the end, we still love the same. We're still human. We still want, to have the same things you want. And I think that gets lost in the imagery when it comes to the diverse way that we learn history.
I'm with you, girl. That was a lot, but I'm with you. You took us there. Anybody else? Okay, so now this is like off the cuff, because I've been thinking about this since yesterday, actually. So when we're talking about stories and Black stories, and I'm gonna try to make this, because I should have wrote this down before, but when you said that about seeing us as humans, Meg Thee Stallion and Cardi B just came out with their new single, right? And Black respectability has been brought into this a lot. I've been seeing a lot of posts about how Black women should be, and like, we wouldn't want our daughters to be to look up to these types of women. They shouldn't be speaking like this. It's been like a real, and sad to say, a lot of the loudest voices have been from Black men that I've seen on Twitter and that I've seen on like Facebook. And if y'all follow me, I'm always arguing with somebody's Black man about how, some of the stuff that they say is a little bit toxic, even if they're not aware of it. And it's always from a place of love. But when you read these books, you get everyone. You get the Ranisha from the corner, you get the baby mama, you get every type of Black woman I have read in Black romance. I've read the Ivy League girl. I've read the girl from around the way. I've read the girl who's the suburban girl who can't go outside. I've read the girl who's the church girl. So how important is it to showcase women in all types of forms? Or do you just let the creativity go where it takes you? Or do you make sure that you include those types of women? When I say those types, I mean every type, every type of woman when you're writing.
Okay.
Hey, girl.
I would say for me, like my last release was like kind of urban, and I was not apologetic about, what people would consider, I guess, like the ghetto girl, but she was smart. So my view of her was just showing that she's a Black woman. She's from the hood, but she's educated. And I really wanted to do that because it's like, okay, when people see like those type of girls, they always like, oh, she's dumb. It's like, no, just because she got a little twang to her talk doesn't mean that she's lesser than. And for me, like when I do like my women, I make sure like I include everybody. It may not be in that book, but you can, however these people in this world, they try to categorize us as women, they're in one of my books. Because it's like, we're so many layers to us. We're not just one person. There are so many layers to Black women. There are so many layers to Black men. And for me, like, especially like with doing the Black love, it's like love comes in so many different forms. And just because I'm used to growing up a certain way and viewing love from my suburban home doesn't mean it's any different than the views of my friend who grew up on the South Side. So I make sure that I always like, okay, you're going to see this love from all different angles, because at the end of the day, no matter how they found love, no matter where their background came from, it all results into what? Love. They just have different love languages and how they became to what they are. Now, I haven't listened to the song yet, but I've seen, the comments and the memes and everything. And I understand it on one hand, but then again, it's like, it's part of the culture now. Like, I remember, back in the day, no, they would not have been able to say none of that would ever get frowned upon. But it's like now, it's like, that's what's considered normal to a lot of people, especially down here in South Florida. The city girls are it. Like, they have replaced Trina. So it's like, for that period of time of culture, I mean, you just have to appreciate their art. That's how they express their art. So no, I don't say it like in a negative light. Like, do I agree with it? No. I haven't listened to the song. Do I like Meg and Cardi? Yeah, I like their music. I'm harmless in that. But I won't take that from their art because that's their craft. And it's no different than us writing it in a book. It's just that they have a bigger platform. They're out in the media, whereas our platform is our readers. It's no different than us saying she got 5 baby daddies or, you know, she a stripper or whatever, but I guarantee by the time you finish that book, you're going to love her because you're falling in love with a character. Like, we don't know Cardi. We don't know Meg. We don't know anything about their real lives no more than what they allow us to see and the drama that unfolds around them. But, you know, as for us, like with authors, we're able to write and write about the most. We can take a woman from like the gutter in the story and we can build her to have so much like self-worth. Like, she is like compassionate, she is confident, like she's like that boss, like she's on Beyonce level as far as like who she is. But because, you know, I took her from that and I built her up, it's no different than what we see out there. It's just our platforms are different. Like, those stories of the lives that they're lived, we're telling those, we're just telling it in a book. Because I read about rappers, you know, who are out here, you know, saying the same thing they're saying in books. It's just that our platform is different, but we fall in love with those characters. It's just told from a different standpoint. You see the development, you see everything. So no, I don't really, how can I say? I don't really know what my answer is to that. It's just a matter of
Girl,
like,
you got an amen from me no matter what.
like, I just support it because I mean, you know, they're women. They're out here doing what they're supposed to do. How is it any different than what the men were doing? You know, if you want to look back at Uncle Luke's song, how is it any different than, you know, scrub the ground and everything else? It's not. It's just they're women and they're doing it, and that's all. That's the only different thing, because the music itself is just there. It's just what now it's a woman and you feel a different type of way. Like, if you're gonna have that energy, have that same energy across the board. I remember when Nelly Tip Drill video came out, it was a big controversy. But did it stop it from playing on BT midnight? It wasn't. They were still playing it. He was just a man. So now it's like, okay, you got Cardi and Meg, they don't care. They're gonna sell, they're gonna do whatever. And it's like, if you're gonna have that same energy, have it across the board. Like, if you feel that way about her, feel that way about the rest of these rappers out here doing the same exact thing. Okay, I'm done.
You hit it. Anybody else have anything to add? I feel like Chelsea covered it all, and I agree with it all. But we're moving rapidly along. So, 1 minute you guys are working a day job, or maybe not working a day job. I don't know, because some people got into writing because they were actually laid off. And the next you say, I'm going to be an independent author. I'm going to be an author. What was the next step you took in your life to guarantee that it not only happened, but it came to fruition? Because a lot of people have been writing books for years and years and years. How did you go from saying, you know what, I should write that book, to like, it was written, it was published, it was promoted, readers got it, and now I'm doing this? Anybody can jump in.
I'll start. I had been writing, like you said, a book for a couple of years, and I had just seen a Facebook ad that asked for like it was a short story contest. And so I entered the short story contest and I won. And what happened was I was able to, through winning, I was able to then publish my first novel, and it was called Protect My Sister's Heart. And I was so scared and so nervous. I think I was probably more worried about what my family would say about the book than my actual readers, or what readers thought. And it was just so nerve-wracking. But I think once people took to it and my family was very supportive, readers liked it, I think I just got bitten by the author bug. And from there, it was like, I have to do more. I have to keep this up. And it would just become more and more every time I write, every day I write. It was just increasing my passion for what I love to do. And so that's kind of how I started. But, I continued to have my day job, and I had my day job then. It was just something that I did. It was just a hobby that I've always had since, I was like in middle school. In college, I wanted to change my major to English and become a writer. My parents were completely against it. But they, of course, are very supportive now. But at the time, I wanted to change my major. So it's always, always, always been a passion of mine since I can remember. And it's something that I always did. But that one little Facebook ad was what had me take the leap of faith and the courage to actually start writing on a bigger scale and to get my first novel published.
Wow, that is a story. That's a whole movie. Um, anyone else want to share? Yeah.
I would say I started writing because I was like at a weird point. I had just graduated from college, and then it was like, psych, you got to get a master's degree if you really want to do anything. So I was like, I don't want to go back to school right now. Like, I just got done with school. I've been in school my whole life. Like, what is life like without school? So when you don't go to school, you got to get a job. So then I start working, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, it's just not what I wanted to do. So I was reading heavily then, and I saw authors my age publishing books, and I was like, okay, it's not like you have to wait until you're a certain point in your life, just do it. So I wrote my first book, didn't really have a plan after that, but when I saw the success of it, I was like, okay, I can keep doing this, and then I can still work, this other job, even though it's not really, where I want to be. And I just kept publishing, and then I was like, I can do this. Like people, when I found out people were doing it full time, I was like, oh my God. So I was like, I want to be full time. I just kept saying I wanted to do it, but I didn't really put any action behind it because I had the cushion of a job that I didn't want to be at. So, I just kept saying it. I want to be a full-time author. I want to be a full-time author. And I started working a job that I really didn't like. And fortunately, they fired me. And it gave me that push to be like, just do it. Because I was like, I'm young. I'm only 27. But I've been working for this amount of years, and it just hasn't, the 9 to 5 just hasn't been what people say it is. So I'm like, let me do what I want to do and see how this works. So I think being fired definitely pushed me because it was like, I'm not trying to do job applications. That's depressing. The emails, the sorry for, not hiring me emails, it was just all becoming too much. So I just put that energy into my writing, and it's made me a better writer. I've learned a lot about myself, more about the industry, and it really taught me courage because I knew that I wasn't going to fall back on going back to work. So I was like, this has to work. Like, I just have to do this. So just stepping out there and just stop making excuses. So that's how I got my start. And if I never have to work again, like a 9 to 5, I'll be fine.
Anyone else want to share? I'll call on you like I am a teacher, low key. But I think it's important that you guys share your stories. This is just a tangent because I feel like a lot of people want to be in your position, but they feel like they're so far away from it. It's like because we run a book club, a lot of people want us to read their work before it becomes a book. They'll be like, let's just read these 20 pages. And I'm like, no matter what I read, 20 pages, 5 pages, 10 pages, at the end of the day, you still got to keep it going. So I think when you guys share your stories, it makes it seem tangible. Like, it makes it seem real. Like, okay, I can actually put one foot in front of the other. And these women look just like me. They're my age. They have kids. They don't have kids. It makes it seem like a real thing, because I think one of the things that's interesting about being an author or a writer or any of that, you don't interact with y'all don't see each other in like a lunch break, or y'all don't go and talk to people. It's not like a daily interaction, a face. So we see the work. Nobody sees the day in and the day out. We don't see, it's like, it's there. It's promo, then the book is there, and then rinse and repeat. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when you share how you got there, because I'm like, when I heard you, I was like, that is very like, yeah, girl, I ain't want to work no more. So I just really had to put and some people are in that position right now, especially with like COVID knocking out so many jobs. It's just like, yo, maybe now is that time. Maybe now I can get myself together mentally, because a lot of people are going through a lot right now. But to just pin that novel, so I can, move from aspiring to like actually doing it. So thank y'all for sharing. If anybody else wants to share their story, please let me know. How did you go from it's in my mind to I actually wrote it down and pressed publish? Go ahead, Chelsea.
I'll go next. For me, I had just moved back home. I had dropped out of college. And I was just like to the point where I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. Like, I was just in a bad headspace a little bit. And coming back home, it felt like the right thing to do at the time, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna be home with my mom. You know, she gonna nurse all these wounds I done had, you know, since I done been away at school. And then life was continue to hit me, and I was like, okay, like I got to do something. Like I have all this pent up emotions, like I want to get it out, you know. And then I'm praying, like, God, like what am I supposed to do with myself, you know, like how am I supposed to, you know, like go on and just like, what is my purpose? That was like one of my main questions, was like, what is my purpose? And I was working jobs, you know, the same with D. Like I did not like. I was working at a check cash store, and that was like super dangerous. And I was like, okay, this cannot be life. Like I'm not meant to just sit here and stare at people through a glass. Like this cannot be it. And I remember just like praying and stuff, like, okay, you know, like life has to be some more than what it is. Like, what is my purpose? Like I didn't want to go back to school, even though like my mom to this day, like she hates because I'm literally like 6 credits away from graduating, but I'm like, I just couldn't do it. Like my mind had just like literally like shut down on me, and it was depressing. So it was like through my time of meditation with God and just everything, and I would write stories like on the side. And I remember like one of the first stories I ever written and shared with like one of my friends. It was like about a girl falling in love with her teacher, and she loved it. And I was like, okay, but it's not real life. But and just going through like that whole phase. And then, like I said, through meditation and prayer, it was like God was telling me, like, I need you to put like your testimony in the form of a love story. And I was like, but I've never been in love. Like, I don't been through lust. I don't have some entanglements, but I've never, you know, had that full, like, I love you moment. So I was like, okay, no, that ain't gonna happen. Like, this is just me. I'm hearing things, like, it's not gonna happen. But like literally, it was like pushed into my face. Like I couldn't, like I'm sitting in church writing like little stories. I'm like, Lord, you gonna send me to hell for this? And I'm like, no, this can't be it. But like nothing around me said, you know, like this is my purpose other than writing. I'm like, okay. So I wrote a story, and it dealt with a lot of issues I went through in college and just that whole thing. And I felt so right. So it kind of made sense to what he said, you know, like when I'm speaking to God and I'm writing down what I feel like he's saying to me, you know, like I need you to write your testimony in the form of a love story. So now I'm like, what, 12 odd books later, and it's like, okay, each book that I write, I share a huge piece of myself with my readers. And the messages that I get from these women, oh my gosh, like, I didn't know you were going through this, or I went through this. And, you know, I never say, okay, which part of the story is actually mine. I just keep that on the hush. But, you know, to see and like the messages I get, and it's like, okay, it makes sense, because what I wrote and what you thought was just me putting a story together, that's actually my testimony. I just did it in a different way of being creative, a different way of just being creative. I'm sorry, I'm just jabbing. But so for me, that's pretty much how I got started. Was God was pushing me to this, and he's still pushing me, because there are a lot of stories I prefer to write instead of the next one that got coming. But it's like when I read my outline, I see the message, and I'm like, okay, I get it. So for me, it's more so of this is my purpose. I haven't gone full time yet, like quit my job full time yet. I'm still working. I wish that day would come soon, because I'm tired of working. But you know, especially in this moment, I'm thankful that I have a job too. So I'm very humbled in that sense. But for me, it's like the alignment of purpose. And every time that I write a story and I share bits and pieces of my testimony, it's like a healing for me. Like, yeah, I've gone to therapy and I've done all this, but the biggest like release of that form of getting rid of like those bad, you know, old traumas or whatever, is just releasing it on paper, well, in a book, and being done with it. So for me, that's what it is for me. It's just my purpose aligned with my creativity. And who I was as an author 2 years ago when I first signed my first publication deal is not who I am now. And that came from growth, you know, growing every time I release a book, growing every time I write a different story. So it has definitely been rewarding in who I am as a woman, because I get to see how, even though I haven't dealt with a lot of the experience I write about, I put myself in the shoes of my characters and how I would handle different things. So I've grown. I want to be independent, well, like fully 100% as an author. At the same time, I'm on God's time, and this is like my purpose. So.
Girl, you be taking us to church. Danesha, you want to go?
Yeah, real quick. Mine is a cautionary tale. I wrote for a long time, and it was actually my counselor. I was in counseling, dealing with some stuff, and she said, put it out there. I stumbled across this website called Wattpad, and there's so many other writing platforms. And I just started just dumping my work into this platform and just pumping away. And the more readers I got, the more excited I got. And I was actually content with just being a writer and having reader feedback and, doing those things. And someone actually stole one of my stories off of the platform and published it. And it was my readers who sent me the feedback of who it was. And I went to their publisher and said, hey, that's my story. And the publisher went and asked him, and he admitted that he took the whole story. He just changed the names. And it was literally seeing someone else having success with my story that made me say, okay, I got to stop playing around. Let me go ahead and figure out how to put and print and do what I need to do to finally become a published author. But it literally took one of the worst times of my life of someone. It's like, it felt like my heart was ripped out, that someone would really take something that I poured into and put their name on it and take credit for it. But it happens a lot from what lawyers told me. So that's why I say, as a new writer, there's a lot of platforms, and I love Wattpad because I was able to learn about my writing style, grow, get immediate reader feedback. My first readers came from there, but be careful about the content that you share on those websites. It is a great way to grow, but it is also something that could come back to bite you on the other side, because there are people who will steal your content, your ideas, and publish them. So mine is a cautionary tale to just be careful and mindful of the things that you do when you join these groups.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of people start out like that. And it's unfortunate that you trying to start just giving yourself that push to just do it, that happens. But people, man, listen, they won't step in their own life. They got to steal yours. But moving on, let's talk about some of the writing. Go ahead.
I want to tell my story.
Okay, go ahead, girl. Come to the table. Come to the table. Tell your story, girl.
Okay.
I want to deny you.
Yeah, okay. So I was writing short stories when I was a sophomore at high school. And, but I didn't really take it very seriously. It was kind of like that, like escape that I could do whenever I wanted to just have time alone and just to create. So I like I said, I never took it seriously. I would write in like a composition notebook, or I'd like type the stories up and then I'd put it under my bed, and I would be like the only one that would read it. So, fast forward to after college and starting to work freelance as a copywriter, I had like the worst clients. Like, they would be asking me for caviar services for starting prices, and I would be constantly complaining about it. And most of my complaint would be to my husband. And he'd be like, well, why don't you get into, writing your books and publishing them? Because in my mind, I didn't really understand self-publishing. I didn't know what it entailed. I just knew, you write a book, you find an agent, and then you get a traditional deal. So we went back and forth about it several times, and I never really created like a novel. Like, I've always just done short stories or what would be called novellas. So I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead. This is what I said when I said I learned from mistakes. I said, I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm going to self-publish this story on Amazon, and then I'll just, see how that goes. I didn't know anything about, marketing. I didn't know in regards to like marketing books and stuff. I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know what entailed being self-published. So I went and I published it on Amazon, and I waited for the readers to come, because I figured I just published it on Amazon and Amazon will take care of it. You just put this book up and then the readers will be there. And I waited and I waited and I waited, and nothing happened. So from that mistake of just publishing it and not promoting it or not doing anything additional, I went and I started to learn everything that there was about self-publishing. And during that time of learning about self-publishing, I went and I was, creating stories and actually taking the time to learn the craft and to practice the craft and to add more words to short stories that I had. And then I took like about a year to do that. So I was creating stories and learning about self-publishing in that year. And then after that, that's when I was building a platform after, so not like before, like doing the responsible thing. I was just kind of making the mistakes and then learning along the way. And and eventually I just combined my love of creating stories from like as an escape from like being stressed and dealing with like being an adult. And I put my all into being an indie author, and here I am today.
That was good. Well, and I'm happy. I think sometimes when you learn that way, you'll never forget it. It's almost like because I had to go through like the mud and do all this, like, I won't forget that. I won't forget that. I won't forget that. So now moving on to the writing a little bit. How do you make sure your characters are not redundant? How do you make sure character A does it's from book 1, season, episode, whatever, does not sound like series over here or standalone down there, especially when you have written more than, I would say, 3 books, just to make sure each character is developed. Each character has their own like voice, their own tone, their own style. Even from what, like, sometimes I read your stories and be like, even what they eat, their favorite foods, what their like vices are, and how they, and the guys, the males and the women, how they meet, or just making sure places are different and clothing and styles. So yeah, anybody can jump in.
I would say spending time developing the characters, and getting to like know them. This might sound weird, but like just figuring it out in your head, because that's really all it is for me. Is I'll come up with a story idea. Like, let's say I'm watching HGTV and I see a couple that flip houses, and I'm like, oh, this would be a cute story, but how did they meet? What is the hero like? What is the heroine like? So I'm just sitting on that for like days, sometimes weeks, and sometimes months, figuring it out. And as like new things come to me, I'm writing it down in my phone, typing it out in my phone, writing it down in my notebook. For me, it's just like spending time with characters and looking up, like, so I have a degree in psychology, so like personality and like people's psyche is interesting to me. So I'm looking up different personality traits, and like if this person is shy, how will that make them like a good lover, or how are they as a sister, as a friend, and how are they at work, and do they work out, do they go out, are they in the house? So just thinking about those personality traits and applying it to real life, I guess, is what makes the characters multidimensional. And also, like, my characters have flaws and wounds and like things that like inner conflict that they have to resolve by the end of the book, which sometimes is something they have to do individually or something they do in their with their relationship that helps them reach this goal. So I just think it's important to like think about those wounds and like research them actually. Like if someone is a domestic violence survivor, like what are the steps for them to get over that? What are the triggers? Like what is something that the hero could possibly do that would take them back? And then eventually they're like, okay, I have to get over this because he's not like that guy. So just doing extreme research and applying it to real life, because readers want to connect with the characters and the story. And sometimes, not using what I know from like real life experience or what, someone has told me, and try to apply that in the book to make it as real as possible.
That was good. Anyone else?
Yeah, going off of what D.Rose said, definitely spending time with your character and really learning what they're about, because then when you spend time with them, what are certain things that they would do and what they won't do, and like certain things they would say and wouldn't say. And then as far as scenarios go, I usually start with the scenario. So I'll start with the situation, and then I'll wonder like what kind of person would find themselves in that situation, and how would they deal with that, and what kind of growth would they get from that situation as well. So character development is like my favorite part of writing the book than the outlining part. Like really learning the character and how they operate. Because to me, I feel like character is a major part of a story. Plot is definitely important, but I find that I like to get to know people in general. So I like to get to know characters in books. So I spend a lot of time on character development and understanding them, learning their habits, sometimes giving them zodiac signs. I do that a lot. Yeah, just really sitting down. I had this book once that told me that you should create a journal for the characters, which I think that's extensive, but I think that you really learn your character at that point. But just really understanding your character, how they would react to certain situations, their temperaments, can allow you to have a diverse collection of individuals, because you know that when it comes to the scenario, everyone's going to act very differently. And knowing your characters allow you to create a story that is cohesive and that makes sense, that's relatable and seems, I don't like to say realistic, but that seems like something that could happen. And it all just, for me, comes down to the character and how the character reacts to the situations I throw them in.
Okay. Does anybody else want to add their thoughts? Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure. Because we can move on. I don't want to hold y'all, because I know some of y'all want to talk some bad on this one. So this is one thing that I think, because of social media, because of the internet, y'all get reviews back real quick. People will read a book and then like the next day or the next, like that weekend, you come back, drop a book on a Friday, by Monday, the reviews start piling in. So how do you balance when you get book reviews that you don't like? I mean, you have Facebook groups and you have your own tribes that you create of readers who, like, no matter what happens, they typically love your work. And so you go from that to like having this community that's kind of like protective over you and like really just like pushing you forward and, you know, saying go, go, go. And then you get those reviews and it's like, oh no, oh no, oh no, this is very different from that. You know what I mean? Not saying that that happens to you guys often, but I'm just saying, like, in general, it's not like it's every man for himself in the reviews. It's not so much of that community. It's like I can write a review and say whatever. And I've seen long reviews that are just like, dang, you woke up this morning on the wrong side of the bed. So how do you balance that out, having that to make sure that you don't feel like, well, dang, I'm not doing the right thing? Do you take it in and absorb it for the next time you write it? Or do you just say, this is for that book, those were the critiques for that book, and that was that, and now I'm just going to go on and start anew? Or do you carry that over with them, with your next story?
I just take what I can from each review. If it's constructive criticism, I take what I can learn and grow from that. You know, I'm very sensitive about my work, so I would definitely don't want to come up here and lie and say that, you know, bad reviews don't kind of hurt my feelings, but I'm also an artist and I want to be better. And so I take the critique and I say, hey, well, maybe they were right in this instance. And in the next project, you know, I think about that and I try to be better with, you know, every book or every piece of work that I put out. And so I just take what I can from each review and just do better.
I hear that. Anyone else?
I'm actually kind of the same with Johnny. I'm very, very, very sensitive when it comes to my reviews. Sometimes I don't even like read them, or I read like the higher ones, like the 5 stars and the 4 stars, and I won't touch the other ones because you have something that I feel like, you know, like I just caught, like you read my book on a bad day and it was just like your outlet to just vent. And, you know, and they will comfort you in those reviews. And it's just like that's my work, you know, and you have to remember, you know, that, okay, everybody's entitled to their opinion. But at the same time, like, I read my reviews, but after, like, when I put out a release, I read it for like the first couple of days. If it's a series, I'll go back, you know, to see, okay, like if I missed anything that I need to add in the second book. But for the most part, it is really hard for me to read my reviews that are less than 4 stars because sometimes, you know, people aren't so nice with their words. And, you know, like Johnny said, I'm an artist. I'm very sensitive, like very sensitive. So And especially if it's like a reader that I know is like in my reading group, and we have like this, relationship where you usually come to me and it's like, what happened? So yeah, like when it comes to reviews, I'm a baby. Listen, I have cried over a review. I've gotten over a review. I've learned to just read the higher ones, come back later if I want to, but for the most part, I understand when I release it, that's just y'all. So.
Yeah. Anybody else? Good.
I would say in the beginning, I was pretty obsessed with reviews. I don't even know why, because at this point, it's not like I don't feel the same. But like I used to constantly check them, and because I think I used it as a way to determine my worth as an author, which wasn't a good thing. And I wouldn't say I'm sensitive about my art. I would say I'm protective. So it's not even reviews where people say like this book was trash. It's like, all right, you may feel that way. It's not, but that's how you feel. But it's the reviews where they are talking about details that I've explained or they might have overlooked, and it's clear to me that you skipped a couple paragraphs, or that you read so fast you didn't digest what I said, because it definitely explains. So the reviews like that kind of like irk me, because it's like, I put all this time and energy in this book, and I've explained. It may not be something that I went into great detail about, but it was definitely addressed, and you overlooked it, and then you put it in the review. So it's like, some people comprehend things differently. So like those are the reviews that kind of like get under my skin, because it's like, it's there. It's on page 65 in the third paragraph. Like I said it right here. So I just stopped checking reviews, because sometimes it's not, they have their feelings involved. It's not, like this was a great story, well written, character development, the plot was great. It's things like, I didn't like this character because it took her 2 months to go on a date with him, and she was just, and it's like that doesn't really help me in my art. Like that's just your opinion on that one scene in chapter 2. Like I look for reviews that'll help me in the future. When people say, oh, her word development was great in this book, or, the editing could have been better. Like things like that I can take with me and use in the future. But like missing minor details, and you didn't like the character from the cafe in chapter 3, like those aren't things that I can really use. So now I don't really check reviews. I'll check to see if I've gotten more, but I don't like read them, because you can lose a lot of time getting lost in reviews, in confidence. And like Goodreads is, just not somewhere that I spend a lot of time, because readers tend to a little more cutthroat on there. I don't know why. And I'm not just talking about my reviews, because I read everyone's reviews. Like if I read Chelsea book and I left the review, I'm gonna see what everybody else is talking about. So I read other authors' reviews, and sometimes I'm offended on their behalf, because it's like, you went really hard, or you said this wasn't addressed, and I remember it being addressed. So like, I just don't look at reviews like all together across the board, because it's just a lot sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine. Anybody else want to share their reviewing process, how you take it in or take it on? I think it's always interesting to see how different authors internalize it, because I think when people write, just like on social media, when they coming out like a celebrity or something, it's like that's the actual person behind that's the person who's going to receive that energy, no matter if you just sitting from your computer or your phone, you're like, it's not a big deal. It's still somebody, like they woke up, they didn't think you were going to say, well, you are the worst. It's like, girl, can I drink my coffee? So I think it's one of those things, it's a double-edged sword, because I always see like, especially as a book club, we encourage people to write their reviews, like write review. And we review ourselves. Like we have the Sister Girl review, and people, they genuinely read our reviews and say, I read this book because you reviewed it. So on the one hand, it's like, give the review. And on the other hand, it's like, we don't know what type of review the reader is going to give you guys, and how you guys are going to internalize it, because it can get real sticky. And it has been, and it played out on social media several times. And so I always am wondering, is it because of that closeness of social networking and how you guys interact with your readers in groups and stuff, that you feel like that's why they take it that extra step versus like if you were like signed to a traditional publishing house and they didn't really have that personal connectivity, I guess? Because like even you said, Chelsea, you was like, well, I know such and such, and it's like, you know, back in the days, you wouldn't know the reader by name or be able to click on their profile and be like, hey girl, how's your kids doing? And you know, you wouldn't have that access. So I'm always interested in that dynamic, but that was just my 2 cents. So taking on that, how it's been a lot of like book clubs, blogs, awards that are independent, coming from Black, whether they're authors, Black creatives, Black people who just want Black literary to be on have their own platform. That has been awards. We have listicles. Sister Girls Book Club do listicles. We do reviews. We do all these things that kind of push it forward. However, I always wonder, does it matter, like when you get awards from your peers, and does it matter, see, like you said, you don't read reviews. Does it matter if you're awarded? Does it matter if, you know, you make a listicle? Does it matter if, you know, outside people, because now you have USA Today, you have other sites that are like not Black, that doesn't center around Black people. They'll just be like, well, I have a listicle today and I want to add, you know, these Black authors. And does that matter? Does that notoriety even matter to you? Or is it something that's just like, well, I'm going to do my art and whoever likes it, likes it, whoever doesn't, doesn't? Anybody can go.
I feel both. It is like my art, but I feel like the listicles, they really do matter, because there's a lot of people who would not know an author unless they saw them on like a list or something like that. And that's a form of word of mouth, where someone has given their experience reading a book or reading a few books from an author, and how they like the book and recommending the book, because that's how I learn about a lot of the books that I read, is that I'll get recommendations from my readers, because I'll ask them, I'll say, you know, what are you reading right now, you know, and they would tell me. Or I would see a link of a list of books, like mostly like Sister Girl links, where you'll say, you know, here are these, you know, book covers, or here are 10 book bays or whatever. That definitely matters, because it helps get the word out about you, and it helps other people learn about your art that you worked so hard on, that everyone should read, because you did a really good job on it, and you want everyone to just share in this beauty that you created. So yeah, they matter. I've been seeing a lot of indie author book recommendations on, I think it was D.Rose, who had a book on Oprah.com, which I thought was amazing. I bet a bunch of indie authors, and I was just like, yes, finally, like, then we have, like, we're here, you know? We've been like screaming, don't you see these promos we've been working on? So like these lists, they work, and they are very needed. It matters, definitely.
Anyone else? And not just the listicles, because we write listicles, so that was like a shameless plug, but I'm talking about like even when it comes down to like the awards, or like being nominated for something, or just because right now I feel like it's such a great space, but I can see how it can be overwhelming at the same time, because there's so much popping up. It's just like, well, dang, I don't want to like put all my eggs in one basket, or I don't want to like feel like if I didn't make this, then I'm not, you know, popping, or I'm not working hard enough. I know from us as a book club standpoint, when we do make the listicles, believe it or not, the people who write them have read the books. These are not just fancy covers that are going up. The covers, when we do the covers that are like 10 beautiful like that is just a cover. We may or may not have read it. It really is, because I write that post. So I may or may not have read the book. But the other books, when we do reviews and we do those listicles, every book has been read. And I think it's like a weird space where authors are now like getting a shine from other platforms. But then I see the whole like when I say black lit Twitter, I know y'all know what I'm talking about. When it's just like, well, are they recognizing me now because it's cool to recognize black art? Or are they recognizing me because now they finally feel like my worth, like I belong in that space? Like, you read my book and you actually liked it. Or did they just go scrolling and they found it? Not like Oprah, because we know she's black. You know, a black person wrote that. I remember I went to look up, you know, and see everything. You know, I'm the FBI. Because it's like, you want to make sure that you're not being, you know, this thing propped up because it's cool. So that's why the question was like, does it matter, like in that sense of if you get propped up as on a listicle or on something when it's outside of the community of black literary community, and even within it, because, you know, people use that to like have views. You don't know where it's coming from. So I think that's where I was trying to drive it from. Or is it just like, well, if they do, they do, they don't, they don't. Anyone?
Yeah, definitely. Let me just add to that. Definitely. If that's exactly what you just said, you know, if they do recognize it, then it's fine. If they don't, then, you know, it's not really, it's not like I'm going to stop writing, or anyone should stop writing because they're not being recognized by USA Today, excuse me, or on one of those, you know, big major publications. I feel more rewarded when readers like me are like recommending my book or awarding me, or, you know, recognizing me. Like, that is more, because I write for them, so that matters more there. Whether I get awards or not, I'm gonna always be writing, because it's just something that I have to do. I can't keep all of these stories up in my head, and I genuinely love and enjoy doing it. But definitely getting an award, you're gonna feel great about it. So yeah.
Well, I'm happy about all the black people coming out with awards. Every time I see a award, I get hype. I'm like, yes, awards here, awards there. So I'm always excited, because I'm like, that's another way to acknowledge the authors that are in this genre or in this space that you may not, or may, because we always think that just because they're popular that everybody knows about them. I've still seen people where, like, I know for a fact that we've recycled a listicle, we recycled the book review, and they're like, I haven't read that author, I'm gonna go look it up now. And I'm just like, girl, this has been in the promo for like 2 weeks. How did you skip? So I think that's always great, and I think it's always good to be acknowledged, because I feel like it does give you a confidence boost. That's just my opinion. And I like to see us rewarding us, and us acknowledging us, and us saying, like, you know what, I read that, it was great, and it deserved, even if these people over here doesn't acknowledge it, we're going to create something to acknowledge you, because we read your work, we love your work, and you deserve something. It might not be an Oscar or Emmy, but you deserve whatever we're going to create in our you know, own way. I know Girl Have You Read has done it. I mean, Indie Love, it's so many people that are doing it, and I think it's a beautiful thing. And that could just be me, but, you know, I got an opinion about everything. So moving on right quick, how do you guys write from a space when, I always ask this question because I'm always interested, when you're like, have to write a love story and you're not in love, or you just had a breakup, or you're writing about something deep, or you're right, like somebody somebody died, or somebody got molested or raped or beat, or, you know, any of that, and you know you're about to go into writing this. How do you, one, maintain your sanity when you're not doing that, knowing that, you know, I have to go into that, and coming back out to like deal with my kids, or deal with my friends, or deal with my boyfriend or girlfriend, whoever it is. And then for the flip, how do you do it when I got to go and write about, oh my God, boy meets girl, and it's just like, I just cursed this mofo out on the phone. And, you know, how do you keep that balance?
I'll go ahead and go first for this one. For like instance, my latest release, the character was very dark. Like,
Please say
really
the name
dark.
of your latest release, please, so these people can go Google.
Oh, well, I'm actually waiting on Amazon to release it today. It's called All I Ask of You. So it comes out today whenever Amazon does what it does. And his character was like dark. Like, when I mean dark, I have not ever put myself in that mental space of explaining, you know, child abuse. Like, the elements that I had to go for this character, it was like really depressing. Like, to the point it made me depressed. I'm on the phone with my therapist, and she's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "I just can't stop crying." And she's like, I was like, because it's a project I'm working on, and I had to put myself there to describe emotions that I don't even feel, but it's because my character feels it. And it took me a lot longer to write the book because there are just some days where I refuse to just put myself like in that bubble, especially with everything going on in the world. And it's like I'm adding on to my depression, and it's like I just couldn't do it. So I had to go there. I had to watch a lot of like what was it? I had to watch like a lot of urban, like the mafia movies, just to kind of get, inspiration on like how to run different organizations that are illegal. Basically so I can get like a better understanding, watching documentaries on, BMH and, different things. So I had to, because I never lived that life, regardless of what people think. I've never lived that life. I just have a good imagination, and I watch a lot of documentaries. Now, like for the love part, one of the movies that I always play, like right when I'm about to start, is Love Jones. And I play it, like especially like, when he's about to say his poem and everything. It gets me all of my feels. I play my Pandora, especially because, for me, I'm single, so I don't have like, that around me. Like, yeah, I got my mom, but it's like, that's not the type of love I'm trying to, show. So I make sure that, my atmosphere is very lovey. Like I said, I always watch Love Jones, like right before I'm about to write a romance like scene, especially like how they met, because I want all the feels. I have my music playing. I don't lit some candles, so I'm very like in the mood for it. And that's how I kind of, put myself there. Now getting out of that space, like my friends, they always pick on me because they're like, Chelsea, you're always like in dreamland. Like you do know like your perfect man isn't going to be one of your books. And I'm like, listen, I'm trying to manifest them through my characters, but they don't trying to hear me. But, so I have to get out that space and realize that what I write is fiction and it's not real. And even though some of like the different scenes, it may be inspired by real life, but I just have to literally like take a day to like decompress. Like, I finished my release for today in May. I barely touched my computer to write anything else as of yet because my mind is just still cluttered with like the dark elements I had to go. And I think it's a good thing for authors to really take their mental health like seriously, especially if you write those novels that require you to go to these places that you're not used to, or even if it may trigger something in your past. Because when I have to sit down with my therapist and I'm explaining stuff to her, and she's like, you make this sound real. And I'm like, because I had to go there. Like, you want to show the layers. You want to be very photogenic, and not photogenic, but, you want to show the picture in your words. So you want to make sure that you're there. And having to go there, especially in those moments where, like if it's violence or whatever the scenario may be that's not your regular life, like that takes a toll on you and your mental. And I didn't realize that until I started writing my latest series. And I'm like, why am I so depressed? Or why can I not listen to anything but rap music? And I'm just like, because I had to go there mentally to create. And then trying to decompress and all that is just, it's hard. And one of the things I really find like very comforting is like hot showers, because it's just me, steam, and shower, and I'm just relaxing and just letting it go.
That was dope. I mean, that's always interesting to see what you guys have to say. Anybody else?
I agree with Chelsea about taking yourself there mentally. I think as writers, authors, that we kind of are empaths in a way, and we have the ability to kind of put ourselves in other people's shoes to be able to relay the message of how someone felt, or how the atmosphere smelled, or how it felt in that moment. We have that ability. And I also use real life experiences. I use people that I know to help me create certain instances in my story. So I may not have experienced that exact same thing, but I know someone who has. I understand how they felt, or I put myself in their position to be able to relay the message to my readers. So I completely agree with Chelsea in being able to like set the mood or be able to get into that mental space And sometimes it is hard to come out of, especially if you're writing a scene. There are many a days where I write scenes where I am crying because of that scene. And that's how I know, that's one of the telltale signs that let me know that I've done a good job with that particular scene, because I drew emotion out of myself while writing it. So I completely agree with Chelsea with what you said, being able to put yourself in that mental space to get there and to take it there during your story.
Yeah. Anybody else? Y'all got some good answers for me today. All right, so we're about to wrap this up. I know you're sitting up here like, girl, we've been on this call for a little while. But I just want to, this is a question where you could take a moment if you need to, but what is your hope for yourself as an author? Like, I don't want to say where you see yourself in 5 years. That's very like cliche. At this point, we in a pandemic. 5 years could look very interesting. So what do you see for yourself as a writer moving forward with your work? And then also, what is your hope for the genre? Like as independent authors who write in the romance space. And whoever wants to go, just start talking.
I'll go first. What I want to see in Black romance, I want to see our work available in different medias. So like right now, Audible is like that's it right now. Like there's a lot of indie authors, their books are being put in audiobooks, which I think is great because that's another audience that you're being introduced to, because there are some people who don't read books, which is so there's some people who don't read books. So, you know, audiobook gives them another way to experience the story. And listening to a story is a completely different experience from reading it. And, you know, when I got into Audible, the experience is different. I'm listening to books that I've read, but I feel differently now. Not in a bad way, but it's like, so now right now we're on audiobooks. I would like to see a lot of these Black romance novels turned into miniseries, movies. I like movies and TV shows, so I watch a lot of TV, and I don't always watch the big budget films. Like there's something about watching a low budget Black movie with the same 3 people that I see in all the low budget, like that warms me on the inside. Like I enjoy that. So I want to see more books like turned into these movies. Not necessarily low budget, but you know, just getting it out there. And there are a lot of books that are turned into TV shows and movies that, you know, I didn't necessarily think the book was that great, but it was given a platform to be in theaters, like on Netflix or Hulu, whatever. And I would like to see more Black romance novels turned into those things, because I just visually seeing it, I just know that it would just take the experience to a whole new level, like audiobooks. And for myself, you know, I want to continue to be a full-time author. I do want to get into other avenues, different medias, you know, whether it's making my book a short series on YouTube or, you know, audiobooks. So just continue to elevate my craft and become one of those authors that, you know, I have books, I have my books turned into films. Like I always look at Terry McMillan. I grew up reading her books. You know, I've seen Waiting to Exhale, you know, Disappearing Act. So it's like, you know, if she could do that, and she did that in the 90s, how Stella got her groove back, like things like that was done in the 90s. We need more of that done today, especially with not authors that are traditionally published. Because a lot of those books, I wouldn't say they're more relatable, more real. And I would just like to see, you know, Sanaa Lathan play a character from a D.Rose novel or something, you know, like just seeing that. I think that it'll inspire other authors to, you know, inspire them, and they can say, oh, I can do this too. Because once I saw indie authors producing your audiobooks, I was like, so it's not that far-fetched, you know, like I can do it too. It's not just people signed to, you know, these big publishers. It's not celebrities getting their books written and them narrating them. It's like, I can do this too. So I feel like once that takes off, you know, everyone will, you know, follow and be like, okay, so I can do this too. It's not that hard. And we'll just continue to push the genre. Cause like, I think it was Brookelyn, you know, when one person makes it, I feel like we all made it. Like if I see a listicle, with Brookelyn on it, I'm like, okay, like an indie author has been exposed to like a new audience. When they go on Amazon, they're going to see other authors, books similar to their books, and it just keeps, it's a snowball effect. It just keeps growing and growing. So, yeah.
Yes, girl. And I watch all those Amazon movies, but it's like I just saved like 5 of them. So it's very possible. And there's so many platforms now. It's like Amazon Prime, you have Hulu, you got Netflix, you got regular movies, you even got like movies that we didn't realize was Disney Plus that are being backed by, Disney. So I feel like this is a great time to be a creator, a writer, author. And reason why I'm saying this because I come from a media and film background. So it's like I'm aware of like how many directors are in, and I'm just like, if y'all would just listen to me for one sentence, okay? You know what I mean? Because how many times are y'all gonna dig up old shows and try to resurrect the character who was 16 who is now 42? So yeah, I'm with you, D.Rose. This was a question for everybody. So who wants to go next? This is actually the closing question. That was the closing question.
I'll go next.
Okay, I'm about to say, do you repeat it?
I love everything Dee said. I really love to see everybody just kind of, branch out, especially go on TV. And I always think of like Issa Rae, how she started out with Awkward Black Girl on YouTube, and she got picked up by HBO, which I think is like amazing because I love Insecure. And it's just, her story started on YouTube, which is so easy for us now. All you need is a camera. You can just have your phone and you can basically record anything. And I would love to just see us, like, even if it's not like so much on, like the big screens, but just having an involvement as far as like, the movies, like especially like the Hallmark movies, like can we get another Black author who writes romance for a living? Can we tell a holiday story? Because y'all is kind of repetitive now, and it would just be nice to see, like the executive producers, and it's one of the indie authors, like we can have input too, not just Lifetime, but Hallmark, just those things that have a big impact, especially on the romance for TV. I would love to see like us behind the scripts too, like, like helping out, or even like, Tyler Perry, just doing different things, so even if it's not like on the big screen, but behind the scenes, but you're able to plug in like, hey, I'm on the set, like, D, can you come out here, and help me, like, I loved your book. It's kind of what we're doing. How about you come out here, and help me do this? So I would love to just see us more involved in just the whole thing, all around, even like with an app that's dedicated to outside of Amazon. Because I don't feel like even with Amazon, we don't even get half of the recognition that, these other authors that are not in the African romance categories get. It's like our books are very underlooked. Like we don't even get half of the attention that they do, because half the time they're putting their stuff in our categories. But I would just love to see us like just become out there, like in their faces, whether it's TV, film, apps dedicated to Black writers, outside of Amazon. Because if Amazon shuts down, we got to go somewhere, I would love to see, just us, like, just that in your face kind of attitude is just like, we're there. Like, we're there. Like, okay, there are authors, then you have the indie authors who are really out here trying to push, each other out. And, for myself, I would love to be full-time, like able to quit my job from 9 to 5 and just really do the whole, writing thing, and just able to see my work on those channels I just mentioned, like the Hallmark or whatever the case may be, or, YouTube or whatever the case may be too, just out there doing more to push my work and other authors' work out there, so other people know that it's more to us than what has been told in the past, or what people don't know, because there are a lot of people who don't know that there is a tribe of Black indie authors out there who are really trying to, to take over in a sense, not, trying to push anybody out of the way, but we're here, we're trying to, like, hey, we're on the island, but, like, we're here, we deliver stellar work, everybody is very supportive, and, just to get more recognition. And to just deliver, more Black love stories, because every story that I've read from a lot of Black authors, like we deliver positive Black romance, and it's not like we're bashing, you know, our own kind in our stories. No, because we want to deliver positive Black romance. So yeah, that's what I love to see.
That was good. Next.
I'll go. And did I unmute myself? Okay. I would like to see more Black stories. I don't think that there could be too much. I'd like for us to be the standard. I got big dreams. You know, I want for us to be just in romance category, you know, just a bunch of our books just there, you know, just lining up. I want for there to not be, I'll speak positively. I want for it to just be an understanding that, okay, I want to read a romantic book. Oh, I see this is by a Black author. Let me check out this book. And I know that I'm going to be open to what I am reading and not feel like I need to critique it in such a way that I'm trying to relate it to the standard that I'm used to, because that's what I've noticed that I can almost tell when someone who is outside of my who I market to or the demographic that I write for, I can always tell like when they read a book by me, because it would always just be like, I didn't understand this, I didn't understand that, you should have created a glossary of terms or whatever. But yeah, I would like, that's what I would like to see. And I think that we're kind of headed in that direction because more and more people are learning about how amazing the books created by Black authors creating Black characters are. And we know that, we knew that already. And it's fine, you know, if they don't know that entirely, but it's even, you know, greater for us to, you know, show how incredible that we are. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see us be more in the broader categories. The subcategories are fine too, but just taking over those categories as well, and it not just being like a trend for a day or two. And as for me, I would like to be like fully independent. I think it was when Chelsea said about Amazon and their platform, that is something that I would like to do, because there's a lot of stuff that I don't particularly understand about how they divvy up funds when you're putting in so much work on your book. And I'm always on the phone with them trying to understand, you know, how did you come to this total? So I would like to have my own platform and to create a fair platform for other Black authors. I'd like to get into printing my own books. Like I want to be independent. Like that's like the goal. So yeah, that's where I see, I'm not all that sure how long that would take, but that's like my dream, to just be like really hands-on with all that I create.
That's good. Okay, we got like 2 of y'all left, so yeah, eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
I'll go. For in general, for indie writers, I've always said I would love to see, similar to what Chelsea said, I've always thought that the amount and the number of writers that we have, the incredible content that is out there, we should be able to have a whole Hallmark channel that is literally just our movies around the clock, Lifetime style. Like I feel like we have the talent and we have the interest, because when you look at our shows like Insecure and all the other big shows, Power and all that, like we will sit in front of a TV as a family and gather and go crazy over these shows because we want more of this content. And I feel like I watch Hallmark. I stopped watching Hallmark because I'm like, it's the same story. And I'm like, when you read and you know there's so much other amazing content out there, you get so irritated and frustrated. Like, if you would take a look outside of the box, you know, we could make some incredible movies. In general, that's the biggest thing I see for. I feel like we're so much bigger than books, because I feel like the content we're putting out there, again, can help so many people understand Black love and really embrace it in a sense. And as for me, I really just want to continue to learn the business. I'm still working full time. I have a plan that I'm going to quit next summer and be full time independent. but I really am still learning so much. I've only been doing this for a year, and it's still, I still feel like there's so much I need to learn. So I want to continue to learn the marketing, the branding, the business side, and really just trying to expand my brand and just try to keep being confident and pushing myself forward and not being so fearful of trying, new and other things. So that's all.
Okay, John.
I agree with what everybody else has said. I don't know who said it earlier, but one of you guys had said something about, I think it was a person from another race. It basically said that they didn't know that Black people love the same. I think, wouldn't it be wonderful to continue the platform or to continue what we're already doing and have our stories expand so that they are more, I guess, nationally known, you know what I mean? Because I know that I watch those Hallmark Lifetime stories. I watch movies of all different races. I'm familiar with, white actors, but I don't feel like it's the same on the other end. And I think it would be wonderful if we, got involved with some of the platforms that you guys have already talked about, like the Netflix and the Hulu and the Amazon Prime, and those certain channels that you're talking about, so that our stories are heard, more broadly. And so that there is not a question that we all, love the same and that we all hurt the same. So I think that'll always be a goal of mine. That'll always be something continuous that I strive for. I think that we've all probably strive for as indie authors. I think I want to incorporate more unique characters in my story. I want to write women that are more impactful and powerful in my stories. I also would like to completely go independent. That my next story actually will be my first independent story. It's called There's Always Hope. So that'll be my first independent project. I think I would also like to quit my day job. That's also a goal of mine moving forward. I don't have a particular timeline just yet. So when Danesha had mentioned that, I think that kind of gives me hope that you can kind of set a date and work towards it. So that's something that I'll have to think about in my near future. And I think, I think what everyone said is right on point. I think I do have to kind of think about some Audible work. I think my last series, I need to put that on Audible. So that'll be a goal of mine as well. But everything that everyone has said has kind of been just on point as for what my goals are. And I think where our goals are as Black indie authors in general.
Wow. Y'all have been like so inspiring. Y'all have made this time fly by. And I know I said that was the last question, but I always am like, I'm a promoter by nature. So the question is, and you can very quickly answer it. If a reader is looking for a book and they're like, I found you, I found Danesha, I found Chelsea, I found Brookelyn, I found D.Rose, I found Johnni. What is the book or series that they should start with from you? So I'll go in order because of the way I can see you guys. So Danesha, you go first.
Unapologetically me. Unapologetically me, and start there.
All right. Johnni?
Probably the very first series that I've ever wrote, which was Loving a Borrego Brother. Mm-hmm. They can start there. Really, all mine are kind of separate and apart, so they can really start with anything. I think my most hottest read is my Heartbreak You series, and they can really start anywhere. But yeah, my first is Loving a Borrego Brother, and probably my most popular is Heartbreak You.
Okay. Chelsea?
I would definitely say start with Why Don't We Fall in Love? Okay. Either Why Don't We Fall in Love or Our Type of Love.
Okay. D.Rose?
I'm gonna say Because of Love. That's like a longer novel if you don't like short stories. But if you like novellas, I would say Brown Sugar. Yeah, Because of Love or Brown Sugar.
Okay. And Brookelyn?
I would say Girl Code and then Mr. and Mrs. Jones. And if you're like really bold, then Last Comes Love, maybe. But I'm usually on the fence with recommending that book until like after. So Girl Code.
Okay. So thank you, ladies, for indulging me and knowing that we couldn't be there in the physical, because I know y'all was supposed to have y'all day. And I always feel like Behind the Pen is it's like the biggest birthday party ever, and you get to see and celebrate. So I'm happy that you guys showed up here, so that readers, because they can't meet you guys and love on you guys, that you took the time out to just have this conversation. And I think it was dope.